Welcome back to my channel, Mostly Paper Crafts. In today's video, I'm going to share the September 2021 My Monthly Hero Kit from Hero Arts. The theme this month is sunflowers, and this kit is beautiful. I cannot wait to make projects with it. This is the September 2021 My Monthly Hero Kit. We have a large sunflower cluster here. The more that I stamp, the less that I want to color large images like this. So luckily for us, they included a bunch of stencils so that we can actually ink blend those. And I'll show you that in a minute. We have the coordinating die to cut out those flowers. A few sentiments. Thank you. Hello there. You're a bundle of sunshine. Here comes the sun. And then my favorite part is we have these word dies with the shadow dies. So there's hello and thanks. And I just feel like those could be used on so many different card designs. On the back here, we can see the different stencils, and I'll just show you right here. They do have the little registration marks in the corner to make them easy to line up. But there's 5 different stencils, and we'll color each of them in a different color, or as they recommend here, for your 5th stencil, you could use the same green as you do for your 4th one. Just put on a heavier layer so that it's darker. But each stencil will be inked up in a different color. Of course, we can choose whatever colors we like. These are just the colors that are going to give us this look. And they've actually included those 4 colors of ink in the kit. They've also included a blending brush for us. I'll need more than one blending brush to do 4 different colors. Luckily, I have some, but I guess otherwise you would just have to clean your brush between each layer. Now, I've been a subscriber to the My Monthly Hero Kit for about 2 years now, and I just wanted to show you, there's 4 new inks this month. Look at all of these other small ink cubes. These are just from My Monthly Hero Kits, and this Key Lime Fizz is a duplicate, and there's a Green Hills duplicate in here, but other than that, all of these colors are unique, and I just love that. Besides the stamps and dies that I get each month in the kit, I'm also building my ink collection. I've also gathered a bunch of ombre ink pads from the kits as well. Obviously, there isn't one of those this month, but it's just been really fun to get supplies other than just the stamps and dies. So sometimes I do order an add-on for the kit, and this month, you know, I love the little Lifestyle Paper Dolls collection. We have the Scarecrow Lifestyle and some really cute stuff in here that could be used with or without the paper dolls. And then as subscribers, we also get 25% off some of the other products that are in the Hero Arts shop. They pick out a few things that coordinate well. And I love Heroscape, so I picked up the Sunflower Field Color Layering Scape. And also, I've had my eye on this for a while, but this is the Color Layering Moonlit Night. And I think that'll go really well on a lot of different card designs, but especially spooky ones for Halloween. Before I start playing with all of these supplies, I did want to mention one more thing that's really great about this kit. You can color in the stamped image using your inks and your stencils, but you can also create the same image without the stamping. So it's still going to be the same beautiful sunflowers that we have here. It just wouldn't have the black stamped lines, which is another cool look. I'm excited to do both, with the stamping, without, and then of course a bunch of different color combinations for the flowers here. I think this is going to be so much fun. I have not played around with layering stencils like this before, so it's going to be a new crafting experience for me. Since this is my first time using stencils like this, I thought it would be fun to record this part of the process. Usually in my videos I just show the completed project, but I have a feeling I'm not the only one who's new to this, so let's see how quick and easy it really is. I am going to stamp after I've finished my ink blending. I'm using my Waffle Flower Water Media Mat. What I like about this is that I can just put the paper and the stencil in the corner, and then I really don't have to worry too much about things getting lined up. Also, since there's so many layers, I'm really not going to worry about the evenness of the tones that I'm putting down. It's okay if I'm not blending super evenly. That's not going to be a problem. Well, I don't think it's going to be a problem. We'll find out. So moving on to the second color, and I do have my color guide propped up in front of me so I make sure I'm doing it right. You know, when you're crafting, there's not really a right way and a wrong way, though. It's just whatever you do, that's the way it's done. It's supposed to be fun. Sometimes I think we put rules and restrictions on ourselves when we're really trying to be creative, and it can be really counterproductive sometimes. If it's supposed to be fun, let it be fun. Don't restrict yourself too much. Okay. But I am doing this first one in the traditional colors. So far, it looks awesome. I'm already impressed with this. Just make sure I'm lining my stencils up correctly. Right, the third color, that one was caramel. This is root beer. I'm going to be using my new Hero Arts blending brush for this one. That first color, the yellow, was butter bar. And it's lovely. This is the first time I'm using the inks, the first time I'm using this new blender brush, obviously the first time for the stencils. And it has a really nice swivelly head, but I find myself, I'm still like wanting more control, so I'm putting my finger right on the head of that brush. Okay. All right, 2 more layers to go. We've got the green layers coming up. Looking so good. All right. So on to the green, which is Key Lime Fizz. And I think I'm actually going to get my old Key Lime Fizz out because these ink pads won't last forever. They are eventually going to dry out, so I might as well use the older one. Okay. Feels like there's plenty of ink in it. So this is a lighter layer of green, and then the next layer is going to be the same green, but just darker. I could definitely see myself making a bunch of these, and I might do all the same color. Like if I were going to do 5, I would do all the yellow and then all of the brown, and I would work through it systematically like that, like assembly line style. But for this video and for my first time, I'm just doing 1 card, and I am going to take care to make sure I really am putting this on heavier so that it shows up. Oh yeah, you can definitely see that. Okay, I like it. And it looks like we're putting green onto the centers of the flowers as well. And I think it's just to darken up the brown. Not necessarily that we want green on the centers, but that the green layered over this root beer color is going to give us some darker definition there in the centers. All right, almost done. I really like this water media mat. I use it for a lot of stenciling and coloring and things because it's not sticky, but it's sticky enough that things don't move around on it, and then it has this nice corner where you can just tuck everything. All right, so there we go. Look at that. Now I have the option now to stamp over this, or I can leave it just the way that it is. And then of course I have the coordinating die so that I can have this cut out, or I could just leave it flat and do a 1-layer card with it. I decided for this one that I am going to stamp over it. So I'm in my Misty and I just laid the stamp over the top. It wasn't too hard to get it lined up, although if it's not perfect, I think it's still going to look really nice after I stamp it. So, ooh, it's very sticky. I've heard about priming stamps with a clear white eraser, but that is not something that I do very often because I don't have a big white eraser. So it's on my list of things to pick up the next time that I'm out. I haven't been out shopping in a long time. Okay, so I'm using my Fawn Jet Black ink. I like this ink because it's good for alcohol marker coloring. Obviously, I won't be doing that here, but I also like that it dries really quickly. If I wanted to heat emboss this, then I would make sure this was totally dry before I stamped and use my powder tool on it. I did hit this with my heat gun to make sure that it wasn't very wet. But if I wanted to heat emboss, I like to use archival ink in Jet Black from Ranger. It's sticky enough that it works really well for heat embossing, and it gives me a nice, really dark, crisp image. It does stain my stamps, so before you go out and get that ink, just make sure you know it may stain your clear stamps. It doesn't seem to stain my rubber stamps, but the clear stamps it definitely does. Oh, and I've been using a air hockey, I don't know what it's not the puck, the air hockey stick, I don't know what to call it, but I've been using that as a pressure tool when I use my Misty, and check that out. That is so lovely. And you can see here it is not lined up quite perfectly, but it still looks great. I think I will do one more layer of ink here. Some of those lines are not totally dark, but I can tell I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this stamp set. And this was just so fast and easy to get colored in and stamped, and then with a coordinating die, it's easy to cut out. It's gonna make for some really fast projects. I created a bunch of the sunflowers, and before I made them into cards, I wanted to show you how they turned out. So this one is the same as the first one that I showed you, except I lined up the stamp a little bit better, and I wised up. I lined it up in my Misty so that this top corner here, this is where I was aligning the corner on my mat with the stencils. So that's really what I wanted to line up with my stamp. So I lined it up so that that corner would be here, so that I would only have to put my stamp into the Misty once, and then I would be able to stamp onto all of my stenciled sunflowers. So that saved me a ton of time and energy. So this is the second one. The first one wasn't quite lined up perfectly, but I did go back with some gold stencil paste, and I went over the fifth stencil, which is the one that adds the detail in the centers and on the leaves, and I kind of like that. I like the gold shimmer there. Okay, same colors, but on craft. Same colors again, but instead of using a black ink to stamp, I used Crunchy Leaf from Fawn. Same colors, but Crunchy Leaf again. And now I'm on a very light brown cardstock. And then one more with the same colors, this time with no stamping. Now after I did that, I knew I wanted to try some other color combination, and I decided to go with pinks. So the pinks that I used are right here: Cotton Candy, Pale Tomato, Rose Madder, and Raspberry Jam. And then I also used the Crunchy Leaf, but it wasn't quite enough. So I went back with Versamark clear ink, and then I embossed with clear embossing powder, and that gave that some good definition there. So I was really happy how that turned out. Okay, so same colors again, but this time I only used the Versamark ink. So there's no color behind the stamp, just the clear ink with the clear embossing powder. And I really liked how that turned out too. Now I have a few more. I wanted to do a muted color palette, and so what I decided to do was antique linen distress oxide and the crunchy leaf again. Since I was going to use the crunchy leaf for the outline of the stamp, I thought it was a good idea to use it on the image itself. So I have a few of these to show you. The only place you're seeing the antique linen was that first stencil, and it's the base of the sunflowers there. Everything else is just layers of the crunchy leaf and then stamped with the crunchy leaf. This next one is the same, except on layer 5 I did add the gold stencil paste. And then the exact same thing here, but on that really pale brown cardstock. So lots of different variations. The last thing that I was going to show you is I did also stamp without any coloring. This is Craft with just Versamark, no heat embossing. Here's Craft with the Versamark and clear embossing. This is Craft with the crunchy leaf. And then I also did crunchy leaf on this really pale tan color. And I think I may color a couple of these in. I think I may color these two with colored pencils or something like that. Honestly, the stenciling was so easy, I really don't feel like coloring, but we'll see what I get into the mood for. But as you can see, I created a ton of these sunflowers, and really, this is definitely less than 2 hours worth of work. I don't know exactly how long. I had to stop and clean supplies a bunch of times, but pretty quick to get all of these big images done. I ended up creating 14 cards using this kit, and I definitely could have kept going, but I did stop, and it's time to share with you what I made. I'm going to start with the simplest card. So this is the one that I stamped with Versamark ink. And then I took the Hello die and I actually cut it right out of that page, and I layered that glitter paper behind it. This glitter paper is from a previous My Monthly Hero kit. I have a thin black mat, and then we're on a craft card base. Simplest design. More glitter here. Actually, there's a lot of glitter on these cards. I have the Hello mounted on the glitter, and then a different color of glitter in the background here. I really liked the way that this turned out using those two colors of ink. So this was the antique linen distress oxide, and then the only other ink that was used here is Crunchy Leaf by Fawn. This is a mini slimline. It's 3 1/4 by 6 1/4, and again mounted on craft cardstock. No glitter on the next one, but there's plenty of shine from the gold stencil paste that I used on the 5th layer. This is another one of the sunflowers that was just Crunchy Leaf and antique linen. That was stamped onto a cream colored paper. I have an ivory card front here, a thin frame around on another craft card base. I use that a lot. This gold paper that you're seeing here is from a previous My Monthly Hero kit. It's from the one with the bees, which are going to show up in just a couple minutes, but lots of shine on this card. I thought that turned out really pretty. All right, still working with craft and ivory. This card was stamped using Versamark clear embossing ink and then clear embossing powder. I have a little linen cardstock scrap here, and I did do some ink blending with the caramel ink around the outside. I repeated that here just to give it a little more interest. And then I had a big scrap of this really pretty glitter paper. I had cut all of the words out of this section of the paper, but the L was still intact, and I thought, oh, that would look really nice on a card. So I was really happy with how that turned out. And this card is on an ivory base. Same color palette, This one doesn't have a sentiment on the front. The sentiment's going to be on the inside. You're a bundle of sunshine, one of the sentiments from the kit. I do have some dimension here. It's stacked packaging, so I just cut some rectangles and glued them together to pop that up and give it a little bit of dimension. This is another one that has that gold texture paste as the 5th layer on the stenciling. And then again, I used this really pretty gold paper that was from the B My Monthly Hero kit. It was earlier this year. And for this one, I certainly wasn't going to use such a large rectangle of it, so I did take a rectangle die and I cut out the middle and saved that for a later project. All right, I'm ready to move out of the gold color palette and into something a little bit brighter. I did a couple of my stamps in pinks. This one was using the Crunchy Leaf ink, and then I did stamp over it with clear and then clear embossing powder to give it some shine. We're on a craft card base again. This is a top folding card. And I've got foam underneath my sunflowers and also underneath my sentiment. So there's a couple layers of dimension here. Well, this one does hang off the card base a little bit, but I'll make sure that it fits into whatever envelope I stuff it in when I send it out. So the same colors, but this time when I stamped over my stenciling, I just used the clear embossing ink and clear embossing powder. So when you tilt it, you can really see that design, but it doesn't show up nearly as much as it does with a colored ink. So you can see the difference here. I love this just the way it was. I used my Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die to give it some detail. And then I liked the hello sentiment on cream instead of on white, just to give that a little bit of visual contrast. And I kept this one really simple. So this one is on a pale pink card base. So I mentioned the bees kit, and one thing that I really like to do with these monthly challenges for myself is incorporate elements from a previous kit. And as you can tell, I did use that bee kit. These bees were colored with my alcohol markers, popped up on some foam squares, and then of course these sunflowers were colored with the inks that came in the kit in those traditional colors. Back on a craft card base. I feel like almost all of the card bases are craft this time, but I also used a sentiment from that stamp set, "You're beautiful," on the inside, and I absolutely love the way that this turned out. It was just a stroke of luck how well the bees really matched in with the sunflowers, because I actually already have these colored. So I cheated just a little bit, saved myself some time, and used the bees that I'd previously colored because they matched just fine. Okay, so more craft, but this time my design was stamped with the Crunchy Leaf, and then I just colored in lightly with colored pencils. And that gave it a little bit of a different look. And it still didn't take very long because I didn't put too much detail into that. I did use a Lawn Fawn stitched frame die around the outside and popped up my sentiment with some foam squares. I did want to show that bee kit really quickly in case you weren't sure which one I was talking about. This was January of this year. And this was one of my favorite kits. Actually, I think my first My Monthly Hero video was using this set. Okay, moving on craft again. Big surprise. I stamped with Crunchy Leaf. I used the traditional colors when I stenciled that in, but this time I used the shadow hello die to cut a hole out of the front. And there is a card front as well as the card base here, so there's two layers. I did have to cut those separately. If I was thinking ahead, I would have sandwiched my acetate in between the two layers, but I didn't think I was going to want it, and then I decided I did. So I just used some pretty washi tape to attach that so you wouldn't see a bunch of ugly adhesive. Then I have my hello cut out of craft and black cardstock, and that's lined up so that you can see it from the front, and then obviously you can see it from the inside as well. So just something a little bit different. I love these next couple cards. These next couple I think are my very favorite. So using the traditional colors for the sunflowers, but not doing any stamping at all. I loved it so much. I really didn't want to do much else to the card, so I just have it mounted on black, and then our hello with the shadow die there. The white cardstock that you're seeing on most of these is a shimmer cardstock from my stash. Okay, so I do think this is my very favorite card, and it was just a happy accident how it came together. I just happened to have this blue check cardstock on my desk, and these were just sort of scattered around, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's perfect. How perfect is that? I used the thank you sentiment from the set, cut it out with a lawn fawn die, has some nice stitching there. I did add a piece of blue textured cardstock there as well. Matted it on a very thin dark blue frame. The whole card is on a textured white card base this time, and I just love the color combination here. I love that gold texture paste, and this was actually the first one that I stamped, so if you watched that part of the video, it didn't line up quite right, and still this ended up being my very favorite. All right, I have two more for you. This is a 5x7 card, so it's a little bit bigger than what I normally do, but I wanted to make sure I included a couple of different sizes in my challenge this month. So we've got the traditional colors, but I did color them a lot lighter. I used a cream colored cardstock, used the same colors that you saw here on the previous couple cards, but just intentionally colored lighter to get a different look. I stamped the Here Comes the Sun from the stamp set, and then I did heat emboss that with clear embossing powder, so you can see a little bit of shine there. And then I have a double matte, so black and a dark green. Now, when I was making this 5x7 card, I had a moment of panic of thinking, how am I going to make a card base? Because my paper's all 8.5 by 11. And then I remembered I used a scrapbook, and I have tons of 12 by 12 paper, so it was really no big deal to create a card base that was large enough for this. You can't do it with an 8.5 by 11 without doing two separate pieces and attaching them in the middle, but you can do it just fine with a 12 by 12 sheet. All right, it is time for my last card, and this is the only card that doesn't use the sunflower stamp. I really liked these word dies, and I honestly don't have any other word dies with shadows. Out of all the word dies that I have, it just wasn't something that was in my stash, so I thought it would be nice to showcase just one of those sentiments. And I had a hard time deciding between the hello and the thanks. I think they're both very usable sentiments, but in the end I went with the hello, and I just found some paper from my scrap pile, and I kept it all monotone. So we've got white here, but we've got shimmer, we've got sparkle, this is shimmer, this is shimmer, and then I really like this gray paper with the small white polka dots. Again, all out of my scrap pile. Came together really nicely. It's pretty elegant and definitely a different feel than all of these sunflower cards. I went through those pretty quickly since I did so many this month. So I wanted to just give each card a few more seconds on the screen here. I had so much fun creating with this kit. Every month I challenge myself to create 10 cards. I accidentally did 14 this month because I got carried away with the sunflower and the stencil. It was something I hadn't done before, and I really enjoyed it. So I ended up with tons of those sunflowers, and I figured I might as well make them all into cards. I actually do have a couple more left over, but I had to cut it off at some point. So I do these challenges every month where I create 10 cards using the kit, and my goal is to use all the images and sentiments, use any add-ons that I bought, incorporate something from a previous kit, and then also use my ScanNcut. And I'll tell you, I did fail at the ScanNcut this month and incorporating my add-ons. The only one that I bought this month was this one, and I know that I could have used this cornstalk in one of my cards, but I just didn't, and I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I think that these cards turned out just fine, and I'm excited to move on to my next project. I seriously could have spent a whole week making cards like this, like a whole week without going to work and just making cards with this kit. I feel like these cards are some of the prettiest cards that I ever made. And the coloring was so easy because of those stencils. I'll definitely be picking up more sets of these layering stencils to color in stamps in the future. I have a lot more projects to share with you in the coming weeks. So if you'd like to see more from my channel and you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to do that. Until next time, I hope that you get to spend some time being crafty too and go make something beautiful.